welcome everybody, and I know there's a lot going on tonight, so I'm just thrilled to see you here. Well, we're going to talk about historic preservation in Pipestone in particular, and we had the idea to kind of just to do a program like this regularly. We've got beautiful buildings here in our community, and we should talk about them because they're unique and they're special. So I'm juggling a bunch of stuff up here, so you have to forgive me. I've got a clicker, a microphone, my notes. To jump right in, well, first of all, I have to say I am not an expert on historic preservation. I'm learning, and I thought this is also just a good way we can learn together and talk about what's going on. Pipestone's historic preservation began informally in the 1960s when Old City Hall was threatened with demolition. Actually, and a lot of buildings were razed in the late 60s, early 70s. So formal preservation efforts began with the formation of Historic Pipestone Incorporated, HPI. They were really galvanized after the razing of several buildings in 1974, which was done here in the city with urban renewal funds. We kind of hear that the urban renewal now is kind of a, oh no, word, but we lost a lot of buildings in the spirit of modernizing and cleaning up. HPI has done much for this community in spearheading the preservation of our buildings. In 1977, the Pipestone Commercial Historic District was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it was also recognized as the greatest concentration of Sioux Quartzite buildings in Minnesota. And in 1978, a Heritage Preservation Commission was formed by the city, and that is HPC. We have a lot going on. We have the Pipestone County Museum, where the Historical Society, that's also PCHS. We, as part of our mission, includes historic preservation of buildings. There's HPI, completely separate organization, and there's HPC, another separate organization. So it's a lot to keep track of. So I'm going to walk you just through the downtown commercial historic district. We're not going to talk about every single building. We would be here a long time. So it's just kind of a skip and a jump down Main Street just to introduce you to things. So I also want to show you a picture of what the building looks like now, and then so you recognize where it is, and then we'll look at what it used to look like or looked like fairly originally. So the Moore Block right now, that's at 102 East Main Street, and it is currently owned by the Pipestone County Historical Society. It was gifted to the society in 2003. It is occupied today by the Prairie Maidens Gift Shop. Now, the storefront was modernized in 1938 with black glass and aluminum. And so this is the Moore Block then. The Sioux Quartzite building was built in 1896 by Leon H. Moore. You really do notice the checkerboard frieze at the top, and that is a detail that you will notice on several downtown Pipestone buildings. The building also features 14 sandstone carvings on the north and west side, which were carved by Leon Moore himself. They're often referred to as the gargoyles. And Leon Moore was actually a very accomplished artist. And stone carving, that was his medium. That's what he really excelled at. The Ferris Grand. Now, I don't have a picture of it right now. I've got a picture of it under construction, which is how we remember it most recently. So they're actually taking down the scaffolding in this picture. But this it's at 10 East Main Street. It is also currently owned by the Pipestone County Historical Society, and we've had that building since 2015. The lower level is occupied by the Pipestone Performing Arts Center, and the upper level, which contains the Masonic Lodge Room, is now operated by the Pipestone County Historical Society. The Lodge Room is open for tours, and then the back portion, which actually was a banquet space, not part of the Lodge Room, has been included in the museum's exhibit galleries. So last summer, maybe a year ago, the museum located collection storage on the third floor of this building as well. So, so we're trying to utilize the space that we have in our compound here of the old City Hall building. The Pipestone County Historical Society owns this building, the building on the corner, and then the Ferris Grand block, all kind of together here. The annual Ferris Grand dinner, which is held in February, it raises funds for the historic preservation of this building, and we've had a successful event with that. The Ferris Grand block then, and I'll tell you, they never got a real good straight-on picture of this building. This is about as good as I could get from the corner. The Sioux Quartzite building was built in 1898 by A.D. Ferris. And you'll notice the continuation of the checkerboard frieze there on the top and a rounded parapet. The Ferris Grand Opera Hall originally occupied the second and the third floors, and the Masons purchased the building in 1916 and remodeled the second and third floors to meet their needs. And I'll tell you that the third floor is a partial third floor. It was just really originally the balcony for the opera house. And so it's not a very large space. The street level of the building originally held retail businesses, including the longtime tenant S&L department store. Some of you might remember that. That was there for a very long time. And the Pipestone Performing Arts Center opened on the first level in the 1990s. I did just want to mention the Ferris Grand Block is the 3-story building here. Immediately to the east is a 2-story building that kind of matches it. That is the McKay or the Mackey building. We know it as Dawn's. Clothier by Dawn is in that building. And original construction of these properties began on the first floor. They were built as one building. So there were actually 3 owners. One backed out, one hung around for the first floor and backed out when Ferris said, you know what, we're adding an opera hall up here. And he's like, nope, I'm going my separate way. So if you look at the buildings in the front today, partway through the second floor, you'll see the division line. And it's real obvious once you know what to look for, because it then split into 2 buildings. So that's kind of a unique feature. The First National Bank now. First National Bank block now. The actual bank is in a different building. This is at 101 West Main Street. And A&S Drug purchased this building in 1973 when First National Bank moved into their current location, a block to the north. This is the bank building then. Now it is a neoclassical Greek Revival style building. It's very noticeable on Pipestone's Main Street because it's built out of buff-colored Bedford limestone, which is not common in Pipestone. It was constructed in 1916, and I wanted to point out the large original windows on the east side of the building. And then you can see they did actually a very good job of filling those in instead of using brick or something. But it's a whole different space with those original windows in there. Originally, the second floor held professional offices, and in 1962, Pipestone's municipal court moved in on the second floor. And there was a barber shop in the basement for years. There's a lot of businesses in the basements of the downtown buildings back in the day. Moving down the street is the Ober-Hubbard block, and this is at 111 West Main Street. It held a photography business for years. Rachel's, and then Mark Doty was in there, among several other different businesses in this building. From 1913 to the 1980s, however, it was a drugstore. It was Madsen Drug, and then before that, it was Menzel Drug. And then today, Inspire Counseling, and a lot of things are in there, actually. This is the building originally. It was built in 1899 by Leon Moore. He's a builder contractor here in Pipestone, was involved in a lot of our buildings. We do know the architect for this building, which was Wallace Dow, and he was the architect for this building, actually, and a few others in town here. This photo is from 1902. And it shows the E.W. Crosby shoe store in the east half and the D.W. Smith jewelry in the west half. And there's outstanding features on this building. It's really kind of decorative. It includes Sioux Quartzite dentals, which are the teeth kind of at the top there, and rounded window arches, which are always neat, including light-colored quartzite keystones, so they really stands out in the top of the window. And then a very interesting date stone on the top. It's got an eyebrow effect. And I don't know if that's an industry term or if it just looks like kind of like an eye. You get it. You get the idea. The eyebrow effect. This is a very interesting building. This is the Oddfellows / Cheverton block. This is it now. So in 1962 and again in 1970, they did extensive remodeling on the front facade of the building, and the canopy, which if you remember used to run all the way down to the corner, was put on in 1970. So today it's the home of Sojo's Sportswear. However, in 1944, Ben Franklin opened in the west half, and then just a few months later took over the entire first floor. It was Ben Franklin, and then the hobby shop operated here really until 2000, the early 2000s. So I have two before pictures with this building because it was built in halves. So this is the original building, or the east or the first half of the building, was built in 1889 by contractor William Frost, another man who was a contractor in town involved in a lot of our buildings, William Frost. He called it the Cheverton block after his wife's maiden name. So this is a 1902 photograph. It shows the COD clothing store, which was run by C.F. Marsh. And in this building, this half of the building, the second floor window caps are sandstone, not quartzite. This is The second part of the original building, they built a second half. The west half, the second half of the building, it wasn't completed until 1910. And that was put together by the Oddfellows, who had purchased the property in 1896. And then they occupied the entire second floor until the early 1970s. So in this 1911 photo, the west half was occupied by Ober Hardware and the east half by Smith Shoes. But the windows are quartzite. The window caps are quartzite in the second half, and there's only 3 instead of 4. So it's a little off balance. And I'm going to back up so you can see it today. And now you will do nothing but notice those window caps. Because, and the number of windows, and it says IOOF. It's the International Order of Oddfellows. Yes. Well, I'm going to point this out. So the Oddfellows were meeting in this building before they owned it. They rented it. And so on the original first half, they have their name stone at the top, IOOF block. And then they bought everything, and let's see, and then they moved it to the middle. Although it doesn't say block anymore, it just says IOOF. So that's interesting. Details and pictures. Okay, so the Syndicate block is 201, 203, and 205 West Main Street. And it's often referred to today as the Geierman's building. Geierman's originally opened in the middle storefront in 1935. They have been here a long time. In 1964, Geierman's bought the corner store and removed the connecting wall. They had their whole store there. And today, they are in all 3 storefronts, plus the next building. So that's great. They're doing so well. The west and center sections, so not the corner, the center and the west sections, have had 1-story additions on the back that runs to the alley. The front facade has undergone major renovations or alterations. Most noticeably, the east entrance, and right here, has been bricked up, and the display windows bricked up, and the corner doorway is not original. So here is the building originally. There are very few great pictures of this building. And this one's a little grainy. It was in printed material, but it shows the whole building. So the Syndicate block was built in 1884, and this building has the distinction of being the largest and the oldest Sioux Quartzite building in the Main Street Commercial District. It originally, as I said, it consisted of 3 sections, but each of those sections was originally privately owned, separate owners for each section that they partnered together to build this property that looks like one building. Each of the stores have had many different tenants over the years, 140 years of this building. The metal cornice was restored in 1979, and even today it looks great. The cornice on the top of the roof. The unique cornice contains a ceremonial pipe and with a bow and arrows, and it has the date on there. It says 1884. It actually looks better here than it does here. But it might be the quality of the photo. Yeah. Crossing the street, the Austin block at 124 West Main Street. So that's where the quilt shop is located there. They have done a recent remodeling of the building. The Thoughtfulness shop was located here from 1970 to 2005. I hear it being referred to as the Thoughtfulness building. So that still comes up. Now the front facade has been remodeled more than once over the years, but the pink tiles were added sometime in the 1950s. So here it is. It's got the checkerboard also at the top. Wanted to point that out. It was built in 1902 for J.H. Austin, who operated a confectionery and an ice cream store. So he actually went bankrupt in 1914, and this photo was taken around 1925, and C.D. Duffus has the corner drugstore in the building at this time. From 1936 to 1956, the Saks grocery store occupied the building, and I wanted to point out the checkerboard at the top, and you see there's a barber pole there in the basement. The Clymer block, 114 West Main Street. So the second edition opened here in 1995. That's a long time. The second edition's been there. There have been many changes to the buildings over the years, including a complete reorganization of the front doors and windows. This building is one of my favorites in town because of the businesses that it has housed. George Chesley had his studio in the second floor from 1893 to 1923, and then a succession of other photographers until 1955 was in this building. Artist rendition of the building. We have not located a photograph of this building. So these types of artist drawings were done for use in newspapers or printing. The original layout of the front entrance, so check this out. So the door is in the middle, and then there's a door to the second floor right on the side. Now that is still there, but here's the door up. But they've completely refigured this. You kind of go in, and in, and it was originally in the middle. Pretty building. The post office, well, I should say, it was built in 1890 by that contractor, William Frost. The post office was located here from 1890 to 1898, but the main occupant of the building was the Eagle Cafe from 1919 to about 1989. Also, in this building, in 1919, Renault opened the Pipestone ice cream factory in the rear of the building, behind the cafe, so it opened on the alley. And he produced ice cream there. In 1920, he actually added on to the rear of the building, and he had a bottling works in the basement, and that is the bottling works that he eventually sold to Pepsi. So there's just a lot going on in this building. So that's our quick jaunt through the Pipestone Commercial Historic District. I always get confused that maybe it's the Pipestone Historic Commercial District or the Commercial Historic District. Can't ever remember. But we actually do have a walking tour of this district. We have it printed There's a booklet. Some of you grabbed one. There's more out there. We also developed a digital tour of the commercial district, and that we put a sticker on those books to tell you how to get there. So we've built that on Pocket Sites, and it's a free app you can download on your phone. You can either walk exactly with it, or you can do it wherever you are. And it shows you photographs of all the buildings listed in the Historic District Register, and also gives you a lot of information about what's been going on there. So Pipestone's Downtown Commercial Historic District is a great asset to this community. It speaks a lot to those who came before us in preserving these buildings, particularly with the push to preserve these buildings since the 1970s. Historic preservation is actually eternally optimistic and a very inspiring field. I found that online and I thought, you know what, it is. It is intent on the present and future quality of life of the community through the appreciation of our built and cultural heritage. And it is. We live here every day. We're going to look at these buildings every day, whether they look nice, whether we can be proud of them, or whether we're a little disappointed in them and don't feel energized by them. So historic preservation includes so many different angles. It includes architectural history. But if that's not your thing, it includes community planning. But if that's not your thing, historical research and surveys, oral histories, even archaeology, economic revitalization, just all kinds of things that go into historic preservation. So it's the quality of life. It really gives us a sense of place, a pride of place, and all of that is connected to historic preservation. So we actually plan here at the museum to just start having regular programs on some of our historic preservation opportunities, some of our success stories that we've had here in town. This whole Main Street's actually a success story. It is still here. And we get so many visitors into the museum who comment on the downtown. I think when we live here so long, we maybe don't see it with these fresh eyes, but people that drive into town, they're just blown away by the downtown. It is very unique, and it's a great opportunity for the community as well. So thank you guys for coming. As I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm very excited about it. And hope to be doing more and working more. I know there's several members of the groups I mentioned here. We have some success stories going on right now. I saw in the paper that the Carnegie Library, the city has received some grant money to do some rehabilitation on the Carnegie Library. I know that the Jasper Historical Society has received some grant money to do some work on their historic building, the Poorbaugh Block in Jasper. So there's just a lot going on. The Pipestone County Historical Society, who does own 5 historic buildings in Pipestone. We had the scaffolding up on the Ferris Grand Block last summer, but that building's not done. So we finished that one bite we took, and we go to the next one. It's just continuous. So the next phase of that, and the work won't happen this year. We have to line everything up again, get the money in place with grants and fundraisers. And that work, it'll be at least a year, maybe 2 years before we get work happening on that building again. But we are committed to making sure that we stick with it, because there's always more to do. I see lots of you nodding. It's like when you own a house, as we talked about earlier. But we do have some handouts of the different groups if you'd be interested. We have a flyer on HPC, a flyer on HPI, And then our walking booklet, downtown walking tour booklet with the Pocket Sites address on there if you'd like to grab that. So thank you guys.
Susan,
Yes.
when did they start calling them a block?
Well,
I always thought of a block as
I know. So see, I'm not an expert on this again. However, when they talk about building these stone buildings in the newspaper, they're calling them a block. Now, it's not like a city block, it's like a substantial building. And I'm not even sure if it's wooden, do they not call it a block? I'm not sure. But that's what the buildings were being called as they were being built.
always confused.
It is confusing. You're not the first person that's mentioned that.
Did you have pictures of the original furniture store and the movie house?
We have a lot more buildings that we can talk
This
about.
side,
Yeah.
It was, but that fire took, what year was that? You didn't, yeah.
The Orpheum? I can't.
I was
yeah,
in
that
The
Dallas.
furniture store fire.
Was, there
Jones
was the Jones
Furniture.
Furniture,
Yeah.
and the Orpheum was a.
And that theater was really neat, I saw.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty
That was
impressive.
a very big building.
I know, I skipped a lot of
It's right
buildings,
over
you
here.
guys.
Well, it's right over here on your
Yeah.
picture. I was trying to remember what it looked like on the outside.
It was pretty, it was like an almost
Same-
an Art
did it
Deco
have the
style.
same stones?
Orpheum was. No, I think the Orpheum was more like a concrete Art Deco.
Yeah, I don't think it had
If I
that.
remember right.
I thought it was
Outside
brick.
stone.
Is it brick? It's probably brick.
That's
yeah.
probably brick.
But I do, I think
I'd like to
indoor,
see a picture of that.
inside it was
It must
Art
be.
Deco.
Yeah.
Didn't it have
Yeah.
the chimney or
Oh,
the
yeah. It was
fireplace
over
with all the
there.
different rocks and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff in it?
I think it was the
Yes.
early seventies.
One of the early pictures you had showed
Do you?
across
Yeah.
the street,
But
and
that
it was
theater
a
you walked
furniture
in,
store.
the
I
red-
noticed that.
Okay, yeah. That was probably the, I bet I can click, that was probably my first picture.
It was an early picture, maybe it was.
We could, yeah, we'll go back to the beginning. It's more fun to look at for us. We don't get to see it every day.
Otherwise, I would have talked about it.
This one.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
there it is, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, this one's fun to pick
It's fun to see that.
pick apart here.
I'm trying to remember if that was in when the Historical Society did the fire department journal back, all the famous fires, I think it was one of the.
I believe
famous
it's in there, yeah.
That one, because
Yeah.
that block is on the left side.
But they lost a ton of buildings, 3 buildings went at the same time.
And there was a theater there too.
Well, there was a
It's,
hardware store too, by the, you know, me with the theater. There was furniture store in the corner, and then the theater is where the parking lot is by, I think, right, where
Henderson's.
Henderson Place is.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah, it's in the middle,
Yeah.
the middle of the
Okay.
block there.
No, I
It
remember,
was
yeah, that's about.
'63, I came to town, but that was there already, I mean, way before that, but that was really.
Well, we'll do this again,
Yeah,
and
we
we will concentrate on
Yeah.
certain buildings.
No, I know, I'm just.
But no, I mean, because
That
it is,
picture
it's
was
so
the
much
thing,
fun.
Yeah, it is.
What-
Memories is what it is, yeah, for anybody.
That's what always amazed me is how many buildings are gone that
Mhm.
people don't know about, because we have the First National Bank building, and the Red Cross from that was originally the Pipestone County Bank, which was a quartzite building.
That was quite a
They
building.
kind of built that in competition. The First National Bank built theirs like after that to show they could be just as big and impressive. And then First Farmers.
Right across the
was
street.
First Farmers is, yep. So and that burned in '70 something.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, it is very impressive how many buildings are still
Oh, yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So,
Especially compared to a lot of,
Yeah.
look at Minneapolis or something like that, and percentage-wise, yeah. It's-
And the big
So-
thing today is how are we gonna save some of them like this hotel?
I bet.
well, the first thing is to start talking about it.
Right. I know a lot of people were concerned about Carnegie, and some things are starting to happen there. Hopefully we can get a roof on that building too, and then figure out who could use it or who needs it and keep it going. Is that,
Well, you have to use the buildings.
Yeah.
They need to be used. hmm
yeah.
Aren't you glad those power lines are all underground now too?
So everything floats through the air.
Yeah, I think you've even got arc lights on in the middle of the street there, pretty dangerous.
The thing I always remember is when I was a little girl and my It was my great-grandma that lived with us. And I can remember going up, I think it was in the block where Geierman's is now, but we went up the stairs, it was just one of those little narrow, we went up the stairs and there was a little old lady that lived up there.
Oh.
And there must have been some apartments up there where people lived, and we went up there to visit one of her friends. So I always wonder, who all, what was all occupied in, in the upper levels of some of these old buildings. Because I remember going up there, some of them must have been apartments.
Some of them were. There was also
Yeah.
businesses
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, I know
Mhm.
dentist offices and stuff
Mhm.
like that too, but I remember going up there to visit one of her friends.
This sign right here says the Christian Science Reading Room is upstairs.
Yeah. I remember as a little girl, it just seemed like a long, narrow stairway up, and then her apartment.
Well, if it's that one, it is, because when I went down to take some pictures this week, I peeked in that door and it is straight up. It doesn't even have a landing. It's like,
No?
open the door and take a step. That's,
Yeah.
well, that's a challenge for using the second floor of the buildings today.
Yeah.
But a challenge doesn't mean it can't be done.
And a lot of the roofs are flat, so that's right there,
Well, that
Another
stairway
challenge.
going up to the Masonic Lodge is very narrow and steep also.
It-
I mean.
And the thing, and we have a steep stairway here in the museum as well, but the thing with a lot of these is that they're not actually steep. The rise and the run are perfectly normal. They don't have a landing. They don't let you have so many steps without a landing now, and we're just not used to seeing it all the way up there. It's daunting.
Long ways to go.
Well, we'll do this again, and pick out some buildings to kind of really dive into, because it is interesting on what businesses have been there, and we have a foundation that Lorraine Draper left for us with lots of great research on addresses, and so we know what businesses were in a lot of these buildings, and we just use that every day. So thankful for Lorraine.
Yeah, she was a very neat lady, I knew her very well.
Yep.
Okay.
Also thinking about maybe to take some field trips with this, and we can host something at the Episcopal Church and talk about that building and what's going on with that, and go to some of these other properties. I mean, you're always welcome at this great historic property, but it's fun to check out some new ones.
You
All
never know
right.
what you might hear or find out about.
That's
too.
right, that's right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.